Let Us Be Muslims by Sayyid Abul Mawdudi, edited by the late brother Khurram Murad. May Allah bless your souls. Chapter 16. Has the prayer lost its power? Brothers in Islam, undoubtedly you often ask yourself, why is it that the prayer, good and beneficial as it is, seems to make no difference to our lives? Why does it neither improve our morals nor transform us into a force dedicated to Allah? Why do we continue to live disgraced and subjugated? The usual answer will be that you are not offering the prayer regularly or in a manner prescribed by Allah and the Messenger. Such an answer may not satisfy you. I shall therefore try to explain the matter in some detail. Parable of the clock. Look at the clock fixed to the wall. There are lots of small parts in it, joined to each other. When you wind it, all the parts start working, and as this part moves, the result appears on the clock face outside it, which you observe. Both hands move to denote each second and each minute. The purpose of the clock is to indicate correct time. All those parts which are necessary for this purpose have been fitted together, and the winding system has been made so that each of them moves as required. Only when all the parts have been assembled correctly and the clock wound up properly will it begin fulfilling the purpose for which it is made. If you do not wind it, it will not show the time. If you wind it but not according to the prescribed method, it will stop, or even if it works, it will not give the correct time. If you remove some of the parts and then wind it, nothing will happen. If you place some of the parts with those of a sewing machine and then wind it, it will neither indicate the time nor sew the cloth. You keep all the parts inside the case but disconnect them. Then no part will move, even after winding it up. The presence of all these parts will not serve the purpose for which the clock is made, because you will have disrupted the arrangement as well as their connection. In all this situation, both the existence of the clock and the act of winding it become useless, although an observer from a distance cannot say that it is not a clock or that you are not winding it. He will surely consider that it is a clock and will expect it to be useful as a clock. Similarly, when from a distance he observes you winding it, he will take it as a genuine effort on your part to do the job, hoping to notice the result which comes from winding the clock. But how can this expectation be fulfilled when what looks like a clock from a distance has in reality lost its existence? Aim of Muslim Ummah. Imagine Islam like this clock. Just as the purpose of the clock is to indicate the correct time, so the aim of Islam is that you should live in this world as the viceagent of God, as witnesses of God unto mankind, and as standard bearers of truth. You must yourself follow the commandments of God and bring all other people under Him. You are indeed the best community brought forth for mankind, and you enjoin the doings of rights and forbids the doings of wrong, and you believe in God. Surah Ali Imran, Ayat 110. And thus we have made you a just community, that you might be witnesses unto mankind. Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayat 143. God has promised those of you who believe and do righteous deeds that He will surely make you to accede to power on earth. Surah An-Nur, Ayat 55. And fight them until there is no rebellion against God, and all submission is to God alone. Surah Al-Anfal, Ayat 39. Wholeness of Islamic teachings. To fulfill this purpose, various parts, as were required, like those of the clock, have been brought together in Islam. Beliefs and principles of morality, rules for day-to-day conduct, the rights of God, of his slave, of one's own self, of everything in the world which you encounter, rules for earning and spending money, laws of war and peace, principles of governance, and limits of obedience to it. All these are parts of Islam. As in a clock, they are linked to each other in such a way that as soon as the winding is done, every part starts moving, and with the movement of all these parts, the desired result is obtained. Rule of God's law in the world, domination of Islam, starts manifesting just as with the movement of other parts of the clock in front of you, the time appears on its face. In order to fasten together different parts of the clock, screws and small pieces of metal have been used. Similarly, to join all the parts of Islam together, there is an arrangement called the Jama'ah, or organization. Muslims should organize themselves and have leaders equipped with proper knowledge and endowed with taqwa. The brains should help them, and the limbs should obey them, as they all strive to live under God. When all the parts have been brought together and properly assembled, regular winding is necessary to set them in motion and to continue their movement. Salah, which is offered 5 times a day, provides that winding, creating the energy which sets an Islamic life in motion. Cleaning this clock is also necessary. Fasting, observed for 30 days a year, cleanses hearts and morals. Lubrication too is required. Zakat is like the oil which is applied to its parts once a year. Then it is also necessary to overhaul it periodically. Hajj is that overhauling which should be performed at least once in a lifetime, and the more often it is done, the better. Abusing the clock. The process of winding, cleaning, lubricating, and overhauling are of use only when all the parts are present in the frame, when they are linked in the order designed by the clockmaker, and when all are so trained that immediately on winding they start moving and begin showing results. Alas, today the situation has become very different. For a start, the very Jum'ah, the organizational structure which was supposed to link the parts of the clock together, has ceased to exist. The result is that all the fittings have come apart. Each has gone its own way. Everybody does whatever takes his fancy. There is nobody to question anything. Everyone is autonomous. If someone wants to follow the Islamic code, he can. If he does not want to, he need not. Since even this so-called freedom has not satisfied you, you have pulled out many parts of the clock and in their place put anything and everything. A spare part from a sewing machine, perhaps, or from a factory, or from the engine of a car. You call yourself Muslim, yet you render loyal service to kufur. Yet you take interest, you insure your lives, you file false lawsuits. Your daughters, sisters, and wives are forsaking Islamic manners, and your children are being given secular materialistic educations. Some have become disciples of Gandhi. Others are following Lenin. Which un-Islamic gadget is there that you have not fixed into the frame of the clock of Islam? Despite this, you expect the clock to work when you wind it, and you suppose that cleaning, lubricating, and overhauling it will also be of use. With a little reflection, however, you should see that in the condition to which you have reduced the clock, you can wind it, you can wind it, lubricate it, and overhaul it for the whole of your life without any effect. Nothing will happen until you remove the parts brought in from the other appliances, replace them with the original parts, and restore the original priorities. Then and only then will the winding and the so forth produce any result. Why worship rites are ineffective. The state of affairs is the real reason why your salah, your saum, your zakat, and your hajj make no impact upon your lives. First, there are so few among you who perform these acts of worship. Due to the dissolution of Islamic Jama'ah, everybody has become autonomous. Whether you fulfill your obligation or not, there is nobody to care. Nor do those who do apparently carry out the obligation do so in a proper manner. They are not constant in attending the congregational prayer. People are selected to lead the prayers in the mosque simply because they are fit for no other work. People who exist on the free bread doled out to mosques, who are uneducated, who lack moral caliber. How can congregation led by them turn you into the leaders of mankind? Similar is the situation regarding your fasting, almsgiving, and pilgrimage. Despite all these facts, you may argue there are nonetheless many Muslims who do discharge their religious duties conscientiously. Why does that make no difference? But as I've said, when the parts of the clock have become unhinged and numerous foreign bodies have been inserted in it, it makes no difference if you wind it or not, clean it or not, lubricate it or not. From a distance, it does look like a clock. An outside observer may say, "This is Islam and you are Muslims." But what he cannot see is how badly its inside machinery has been tampered with. Brothers, you understand why it is so that you pray and fast and yet remain trampled under the heel of cruel tyrants. But should I tell you something even more distressing? Although most of you no doubt regret this situation, but I would say 999 people out of 1,000 are not prepared to change the situation. 999 people out of 1,000 are not prepared to change their situation. 999 people out of 1,000 are not prepared to change their situation. They have no urge in their hearts to assemble the clock of Islam again properly. They are afraid that any such reconstruction would mean that their own favorite imported parts would be thrown out, and this they are not prepared to accept. They are afraid that any tightening of various parts would mean that they will have to discipline themselves, and this they are not willing to undertake. They are afraid that any tightening of various parts would mean that they will have to discipline themselves, and this they are not willing to undertake. Instead, they prefer that the clock remains a piece of decoration on the wall for people to be shown and told how wonderful Islam is, what miracle it can perform. Those who are supposed to love this clock more than others would like to wind it repeatedly and zealously and to clean it more laboriously, but they want to do nothing to reset its part properly or tighten them, nor will they seek to get rid of the extraneous parts. Dear friends, I wish I could endorse your attitudes and behavior, but I cannot say anything which I believe is wrong. Dear friend, I wish I could endorse your attitudes and behavior, but I cannot say anything which I believe is wrong. I assure you that if, in addition to praying 5 times a day, you were to offer tahajjud, isra,